Yes, it is true, and I'm well aware the Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets, they've been two of the worst teams in all of basketball over the last 3 or 4 years. Both teams are in rebuilding mode. Both teams are super young. Both teams are still figuring things out and still trying to find their identity. So I know some people might be thinking, how can two of the worst teams in all of the NBA become the NBA's next great rivalry? Well, there's actually a bunch of factors that goes into it, and for starters, I just want to say I really love the last few off seasons that both teams have had. When we look at some of the trades and some of the free agents both teams have picked up, and the trades that they made, and most importantly, I feel like both organizations have done a great job of acquiring talent through the NBA draft. We can start with the Detroit Pistons. Look at what they've done since 2021. We all know we were blessed with the number 1 overall pick that turned into Cade Cunningham. Could not have been more happy with that selection. We look at 2022, picked up Jaden Ivey, also worked some front office magic on draft night to acquire Jalen Duren from the Charlotte Hornets. He was the 13th overall pick. And then we fast forward to 2023, 5th pick once again. That turns into Asar Thompson, and more front office magic. We trade up to acquire Marcus Sasser with the 25th overall pick. So I feel like the Detroit Pistons have done a great job since 2021, and so has the Houston Rockets. In 2021, they were blessed with the number 2 overall pick that turned into Jalen Green. Also, they had the 16th overall pick in that year's draft that turned into Alperen Sengun. We fast forward to a year later, 2022. They get the 3rd overall pick. They select Jabari Smith. And then also late in the first round, they pick up Tari Eason. I can't remember what pick he was. But anyways, 2023 for the Houston Rockets, another great draft. They get the 4th overall pick. They get the other Thompson twin, Amen Thompson. And also with the 20th overall pick in the draft, they get a crazy steal, and they get Cam Whitmore, a guy that was supposed to be a lottery pick. So both of these teams over the last couple years have done an exceptional job in the NBA draft, and then I feel like both teams have also made some trades, signed some older guys that's going to make their teams a lot better. So I feel like both teams, despite them being so bad over the last couple years, over these up and coming years, we're going to see them turn a corner, and they're going to look like completely different teams. Now, don't get me wrong, both teams becoming better for the foreseeable future, that's not enough to make them an NBA rivalry. We have two good teams playing against each other every other night. That doesn't mean that they're rivals. But another thing to consider when it comes to the Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets, there's already some animosity, there's already some hostility between these two teams. And me personally, I think the only reason we have not declared these two teams a rivalry yet is because neither team really has nothing to play for when it comes to competing for a championship and competing in the NBA playoffs. Like we've already established, both teams have been struggling over the last 3 or 4 years. But nonetheless, to get back on topic, the animosity and the hostility between these two teams comes from their respected best players on the teams, Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green. And we all know those two guys came from the 2021 NBA draft class. Cade Cunningham was number 1 and Jalen Green was number 2. So naturally, especially in the 2021 NBA draft, it was such a loaded draft class at the top. Nobody knew who was really going to go number 1. I'm glad we went with Cade Cunningham, but naturally, as basketball fans and as just competitive, humans are just competitive. It's just in our human nature. So we're naturally going to talk about who's better between Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, and that's been a hot topic between Detroit Pistons fans and Houston Rockets fans all over social media. And you guys know, I'm from Detroit. I'm a Detroit Pistons fan, and I'm a very unbiased person when it comes to sports. And I'm going to give you my unbiased opinion. My unbiased opinion, I still feel like Cade Cunningham is a better player than Jalen Green, and I'm glad we selected him on draft night. But both of these guys are very special and very talented players, and it's very fun to talk about them because they're completely different. And I really hate how both players get misconstrued. A lot of people like to go to their numbers. A lot of people don't, a lot of people don't watch basketball, and I think you got to have the right balance of the eye test and the numbers. I think both are important factors when it comes to evaluating how good a player is, but a lot of people just look at the numbers, and I feel like you can't do that because a lot of things that people point to when it comes to Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham, they always talk about their efficiency, but you got to realize that both these two guys were not drafted into great situations. They were drafted into teams that had nothing. When you watch Jalen Green, his second year in the NBA, same thing with Cade Cunningham. These guys are the only real threats out on the court, so they're getting double teamed and they're getting trapped and they're getting blitzed on every single play, so they're not getting good looks. So of course we look at we take their efficiency and we compare it to other rookies in their class like Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley, who had really good rookie years. But we look at these guys and they got drafted to teams with high quality players. We look at the Toronto Raptors. Scotty Barnes is playing alongside Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet. Those are NBA champions. We look at Evan Mobley. He gets drafted and he goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they become one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference last season before getting Donovan Mitchell. And then that team just got hit with injuries, but he's playing alongside Lauri Markkanen. He's playing alongside Jared Allen, Darius Garland. Those guys are all stars. So I think we have to be fair and from that perspective when it comes to Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham. And I feel like both of these guys, they have a history with each other. They've been knowing each other since high school. So each and every time, and it's a shame that these guys are in opposite conferences. We're only going to get to see them two times a year. But I'm sure every time they compete against each other, they're going to want to dominate they're going to try to dominate each other. Pause. But with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green, I feel like they're going to be the guys to ignite this. They're going to be the guys to ignite this rivalry between the Detroit Pistons and the Houston Rockets. And I feel like now we're in a position where there's not going to be no excuses like the one I just said for neither one of these guys, because I feel like both players, they now have high quality basketball players around them. So I'm really excited to see what both of these guys are going to do over the next couple of years. But I feel like these two guys are the foundation of this rivalry. And another factor to consider when it comes to this potential NBA rivalry is the 2023 NBA draft. Both teams selected one of the Thompson Twins, and this situation is so crazy similar to the Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham situation. Is almost like deja vu. Cade and Jalen Green, they go number 1, number 2. One goes to the Pistons, one goes to the Rockets, and then 2 years later, same thing with the Thompson Twins. One goes number 4, one goes number 5, and then one goes to Detroit and one goes to Houston. So I think that's crazy, and that's also is going to create that same animosity between us as fans, talking about which Thompson twin is better between the two. I feel like both sides are going to be arguing their best case on why which twin is better, and it's definitely going to be an argument because they're very close in skill set and they play very similar. And right now, me personally, I don't have an answer for which one I feel like is better. I feel like we need to see a little bit more of them. But watching them in Overtime Elite and watching them in the Summer League, and unfortunately we didn't get to see too much of a man, but they both play very similarly on both the defensive and the offensive side of the ball. But nonetheless, not only are they going to add that fuel and animosity on social media talking about basketball, but also out there on the basketball court. I feel like it's just one of those things, and I don't know how personal it's going to be between Amin Thompson and Asor Thompson on the basketball court, because these two guys seem really close with each other, watching interviews with them, and I believe this is their first time not playing on the same basketball team. But I'm sure when they lace them up and they get in between those lines, they're going to try to prove that one is better than the other. So that's going to be very exciting, and I think all of that energy from these two, and also from Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham, is just going to create some great energy. And I think it's gonna what's the word I'm looking for? It's gonna wash off onto the crowd, onto the teammates, onto the coaches, and I think it just has some potential to create a great basketball atmosphere. So I'm really looking forward to these, some of these personal matchups: Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, and then the Thompson Twins. And another thing I love is I feel like both teams are on the same type of timeline. Like we already established, both teams are on that back end of the rebuilding stage. Those years you got to go through of all that agonizing losing, and now they get some talent through the draft. You make some free agent signings, you make some trades, so now you have veterans and established players around your basketball team. And I'm not saying the Pistons and the Rockets, I'm not saying that they're about to go on some crazy run and make the conference finals. No, but I think they're going to win a significantly more games this year than what they won last year. And I think a lot of that is going to be on the shoulders of both Jalen Green and Cade Cunningham. How big of a leap they can take next season is how big of a leap their team will take next season. But no, the timeline just aligns perfectly. Like we just talked about the 2021 NBA draft, and then also the 2022 NBA draft with Jaden Ivey, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, Jalen Duren is in that draft, and then the 2023 draft. Like these teams are just like very, very similar, very close in age, and then we have the animosity. Now, unfortunately, these are two teams in opposite conferences, so there's we're only going to get to see them compete twice a year, hopefully, for both franchises. Could you imagine that if we were facing off in the NBA Finals? That would be some must-see basketball, some must-see TV. Number 1 overall pick, number 2 overall pick facing off in the NBA Finals from the same draft class, and then the same thing to two twin brothers facing off in the NBA Finals, same draft class, consecutive picks, 4th and 5th. I think that'll be crazy, man. But let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Let me know how you feel about everything. Who's better, the Pistons, the Rockets? Who's better, Cade Cunningham or Jalen Green? Who's better between the Thompson Twins? Is Jabari Smith going to be better than Jaden Ivey? Let me know down in the comments, man, and I will definitely be tuning in to those conversations. But if you enjoyed, subscribe, like, and that's curtains.